Hello and welcome to Module 4, Section V of the Better with Less course. Today we're talking about finances. And one of the best side effects of having a minimal life is that you're going to be spending a lot less money, or you'll find less temptation to bring more into your space after you've done all the work of decluttering. But we want to put that money to good use. In today's lesson, we'll talk about the importance of setting different financial goals for yourself, specific strategies to help you shop less or spend less, and strategies to help you save more. Let's jump in. Let's get into finances. If we are trying to develop a minimalist approach to finance, there's a couple key components of that. First of all, just like we have to be intentional with our spaces and our physical clutter, we also need to be intentional about what we want to achieve financially. So I would encourage you to reflect about your short-term and long-term financial goals. Having a clear vision of where you want to go makes it much easier to stick to good habits, to spend less, to save more. That becomes so much easier when you have a powerful why behind it. We will also in this lesson specifically go through strategies to spend less or shop less and save more. Those are kind of the two key strategies here when we look at how we can make things more intentional and also help fund those financial goals. And the added benefit when you're spending less or shopping less is that you're less likely to bring new pieces of clutter into your home, and therefore you'll be able to not have to declutter as much in the future. So these really all go hand in hand. When we're looking to spend less or shop less, there are going to be three helpful strategies. The first strategy you can use is to inventory your current spending. We need to see what the situation currently is so we can figure out how we can make improvements. So for this, I encourage you to take a look at your bank statements, any credit card transactions, or wherever you are doing your spending. What's really convenient is that many banks and credit card companies will actually do the calculations for you. And so there's a lot of helpful data there that you can see. Are you spending more than you'd like to spend in certain categories? So I'd encourage you to reflect where you are currently spending the most money. Likewise, you could look at the types of items you're spending the most money on. You could also take a look at areas where you are spending more than you should be. So even if it's not your most spending, if you've, let's say, increased your restaurant budget more than you planned, maybe that's an area you can scale back a little bit. It's also important to reflect if purchases are needs or wants. There's obviously a big difference between the two. So when we're looking at this data, really reflect, okay, was this a need or was this a want? And again, that doesn't mean we can't ever purchase items that we want. It's just helpful to be mindful of them because those are more likely to be the areas we can cut. It's also important to see if you're making impulse purchases. And an impulse purchase, when we think about that, that's kind of your example of being at the checkout line and seeing the candy bars or the magazines, the random stuff there at the end that's trying to get you to make a last minute purchase. But that's not the only type of impulse purchases. If you've ever bought more than you needed with online shopping to get free shipping, that may have been an impulse purchase. If you have ever added stuff to your cart that you saw kind of spontaneously or because you saw a certain ad or commercial. If you ever bought something just because it was on sale, those all are impulse purchases. And so if we take a closer look, we can see what types of impulse purchases we're making, and those in general can be excellent expenses to cut. After you've set your inventory, let's set a budget. A budget can be a really helpful tool to help you navigate your spending and saving. I will say though, it's very common for individuals who've never budgeted before to get really excited and create, this amazing budget that's pretty trim, pretty limited spending. And I would encourage you to not take it that far when you're first starting out. Let's have this be more moderate so you can easily maintain it. Doing a more moderate number is going to be easier to maintain, and you can always build more in the future. But one thing that we often see, not just with budgeting, but with any lifestyle change, when someone jumps in head first and does too much too quickly, they often get burned out. What they're doing is not sustainable, and then they basically ditch it completely because, oh, it didn't work for me or it was too much. Let's go very moderate here so we can maintain it. There are many different types and tools that you can use with budgeting. In your homework this week, I have templates for you that you can use from a variety of these. If you're looking for a paper-based template, that could include a traditional budget, a reverse budget, or a balanced formula budget, which is also like a pie chart. With these budgets, a traditional budget, you've got separate columns for your earnings or income and then also for your expenses or spending. And you just want to make sure that your expenses do not exceed the income or whatever you've set aside for them. The reverse budget, you actually go through and you calculate your bills and any savings contributions you want to make first, and then you figure out how much money you have left to work with for your different expenses. This is kind of a pay yourself first model. And then with the balanced formula budget, that's more so where you allocate a certain percentage for different categories, such as housing, utilities, groceries, and you calculate it that way. I will say, though, there also are some great online tools with budgeting. One final piece of advice is you could always start out, if you didn't want to have a whole budget for everything, you could set a certain budget for a certain type of spending, such as a grocery budget or a clothing budget. Whatever is a problem for you with your spending, maybe start with a very small, easy to keep track of budget for that one type of spending. So that could be a good baby step if you are looking to move more in that direction but aren't quite ready to do a full-on budget yet. To conclude our section about spending less, let's talk about some specific strategies that may work for you. Obviously, as with any tips provided here, do what makes sense for you. A one in, one out approach is very helpful. The concept being, if you bring in something new to your space, then you have to get rid of something you have. This can be helpful not only to prevent new clutter, but it will force us to question, is it really worth it to buy this new pair of shoes? Do I have a pair of shoes I want to get rid of? Or whatever the item is, if we know we have to replace something we already have, that may prevent us from choosing to bring something new in. You can also opt for a cash-only approach where you're just using cash and not a credit or debit card. Studies have shown that we feel a little bit more pain when we're spending with cash and we're a little bit more aware of how much we're spending, mostly because it's not as convenient. You know you've got a certain amount of cash, you can't go over that. You could also ask yourself, if this item was 3 times the cost, would I still buy it? This can prevent us from being tempted by sales and impulse purchases because we might be buying something we don't need because of the deal. But reflect, if it's something you truly need or that's truly going to enhance your life, you probably would buy it if it was triple the cost. But if it was definitely something that's more impulsive, it can be a really helpful tool to prevent excess purchasing. Sticking to a list is also very important. Whether this is with grocery shopping or any other type of shopping, having a plan when you go into a store and not allowing yourself to go off of that plan is helpful. A way to balance it when I have done this in my own life is to allow myself with grocery shopping one splurge purchase, not necessarily a splurge in terms of cost, but one item that wasn't from the list. So one spontaneous item, I guess, is the best way of describing that. And that allows us to stick to the list, but also making clear prioritization or clear choices here that I can only purchase one additional thing helps and also prevents too much from being purchased. A 24-hour strategy is great, especially when it comes to online purchases. It's generally so easy to be able to purchase multiple items and to add things to the cart with just a few clicks, maybe even to purchase just with one click. So if we make ourselves wait 24 hours before actually clicking submit and making that payment, reflect about if that is still going to be a meaningful purchase to make. Sometimes it's not. If you're looking for a more advanced strategy, you could consider a no spend challenge. If you are someone who benefits more from extremes, this is a designated period of time where you're not spending anything, and that can be a great reset for you, especially if you're trying to break some impulse shopping patterns. We've talked a lot about spending. Let's shift our focus to strategies to save more. It is a two-way street. Obviously, we want to spend less, and that can make a huge impact, but we also want to be having intentional savings goals and contributions to help us build wealth that way. Since sometimes, even if you're spending less, that money just sitting in your regular account not really doing anything is not necessarily going to help you reach those goals. One of the best tips is to set up automatic transfers if possible, even if they're small, towards whatever your goal accounts are. So, for instance, in my own life, we have a high yield savings account that we use in addition to our regular checking accounts and that sort of thing. And in our situation, when we were saving up for our house, we automatically had $1,000 from our bank account go into that particular savings account every single month. We didn't have a chance to say, well, let's not put that money in this month. Let's just wait on it. And over time, that money continued to build up until we actually bought our house. And obviously now we pay our mortgage, but that was a very helpful way that we were able to save up for our down payment on our home. And you can do the same thing with, retirement contributions, with any sort of savings goal you have. Send that money there automatically so it takes away your own effort, as well as it can be on autopilot. You are paying yourself first by transferring money to these different accounts. And fortunately, it also is pretty easy to set these up. If you are unsure, simply talk to your bank about different transfers, and you should be able to also do it online with a few basic clicks. Some people benefit from having some sort of visual progress tracker to track their savings goals or debt payoff, where you are physically coloring things off as you're making progress. I know there have been times and places in my life that I found that helpful, so you can really physically track your progress and see it visually. If you haven't already done so, having financial meetings, whether it's with yourself or with a partner, other family members, even with kids, can be so important. Communication is everything, as well as having an awareness of these different numbers and being able to track that. Many people don't regularly check in on their financial situation and therefore don't have as much of an awareness. When you watch it, when you have an awareness of your spending, your saving, where your accounts are at, you're much more likely to make informed choices, and it's easier for you to track your progress. And checking them regularly also, over the long term, prevents financial anxiety because you're constantly aware of your situation and you can focus on not wondering what the situation is, but be able to take action to help improve that. A final strategy that can be helpful is to make sure we are taking that money we're saving when we're spending less and allocating that towards our savings goals. There's a couple ways we can do this. You can use some sort of cash jar if you want more of a physical reminder of it. I did not go out for lunch today, so I can put $10 in the jar here. You can also set up a separate account for this digitally. So I didn't go out for lunch today. I'm going to transfer $10 from my bank account to this particular savings goal account, such as being able to build up my emergency fund. Send that there. And that's a really great way you can see the itemized breakdown. I didn't go out for lunch today, so I saved about $10. Now let me put this money directly into my savings goals. And doing that regularly is a great way to also have this build up and also feel powerful with your choices. Your choices do matter, it adds up, and you can see that progress very easily with either using the cash jar or these different transfers to take that into account. That wraps up this lesson on finances, but you're definitely going to want to check out the homework this week. I've got lots of helpful printables for you just because this is such an important topic. Keep up the great work, and I will see you in the next video.